officially call to order the public hearing on the Congressional Oversight Committee on Automated Elections is hereby called to order on the part of the Senate, and I hereby acknowledge the presence of my colleague and member of the Senate panel, Senator Francis Tolentino. We would also like to welcome my co-chairperson, my counterpart in the House of Representatives, Representative Elpidio P.D. Barsaga Jr.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the House of Representatives, the meeting of the Committee on Congressional Oversight on Automated Election System is hereby called into order. And may I acknowledge the presence of the following members of the House of Representatives. We have our Minority Floor Leader, Joseph Stephen Paduano. We have also Congressman Lawrence Fortun, our chairperson in the Committee on Suffrage, Chairperson Juliet Marie de Leon Ferrer. Then we have Congressman Edgar Erice, Congressman Argel Kabadbat, and of course, our Deputy Speaker, Bernadette Herrera.
Yes, thank you very much, and we welcome you all to the second joint oversight meeting. For the record, may I ask the Committee and Legislative Committee Secretary of the Senate panel, Attorney Dana Alberto, to acknowledge the presence of our invited guest here with us this morning. Dana?
Good morning. The Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on the Automated Election System would like to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished guests, namely Attorney Hubert Guevara, Attorney Ivan John Uy, Director Allen Francis B. Abayao, Director of Electoral Contest Adjudication Department, Director Esther Ivelia Flor Rojas, Director of Election Records and Statistics Department, Director Jeannie V. Flororita, Director of Information Technology Department, Director Aaron Francis B. Abayao, Director Electoral Contests Adjudications Department, B. Niedo, Director Finance Services Department, Ms. Sheila Stares of the Department of Health, from DICT, CAC, Ms. Irene De La Torre, Ms. Eloisa V. Gonzalez, Mr. Stephen Richard Barbadillo, Ms. Jen Caballes. From DOH, Mr. Ebenezer Ramos Bonbon. From Election and Barangay Affairs Department, Director Divina E. Blas Perez. From Office for Overseas Voting, Director Sonia Bea Elwi Lozada. Attorney Michelle Frances Paredes. From DICT, Dr. From CAC and PPCRV, Dr. William Emmanuel Yu. From CAC, Mr. Michael Chulim. CAC, Mr. Angel Averia Jr. and NAMFREL. From CAC and NAMFREL, Mr. Fernando Contreras Jr. From DICT Legislative Liaison Division, Attorney Elias Omar Sana. Meron po bang hindi po natawag? Kindly state your institution and name, please. Thank you. Another IT expert, Mr. Jeffrey E&D. And from DICT, Government Digital Transformation Bureau Director, Antonio Antonio Padre. Meron po bang hindi pa po natawag? Thank you. That will be all, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. May we now proceed where we left off during the last public hearing, the continuation of the Comelec presentation. And this time we will finally confront the new COVID-19 health and safety protocols for the 2022 elections. As we have only one precedent, the Palawan plebiscite in March, I suggest that we all reserve our questions until Comelec has concluded its presentation, as this is all new territory for us. May the Comelec now discuss its new normal manual, particularly the questions raised by our House contingent, the manner of campaigning, the manner of voting on election day, and during the election, counting and canvass, and finalizing the results. So may we call on, firstly, the local source code reviewer engaged by the JCOC AES Senate Panel 17th Congress to inform the body of the highlights and summary of their review. Dana, who is our source code reviewer? Is that Attorney Irving Tan?
Attorney Ivan Uy.
Ivan Wui, sorry. Thank you. So we call on Attorney Ivan. Is he here?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good morning po.
Nasan ka, Ivan?
Can you see me po?
No, I'm looking.
There.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Ivan. Yes, welcome. So, Ivan, if you can just very quickly help us with this. Who will go first? Because I understand Commissioner Marlon Casquejo would like to inform the body on the enhancements as well on the 2022 local source code review. Is Commissioner Casquejo around as well? Wala pa.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm present, Madam Chair. But as of now, I cannot show my video because of poor internet connection. I'm just using my data in the cell phone, Madam Chair, because I'm traveling back to Davao.
Okay.
This 2 p.m., Madam Chair.
Oh dear. Okay. So, sino mauna sa inyo? Si Ivan or si Commissioner muna?
I think it's Ivan, Madam Chair, because I'm still going to write down the...
Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Marlon. Okay. Mauna ka daw, Attorney Ivan.
Apo. Dana, the slides are with you. Can you please show the slides, please? Okay, thank you. So as you very well know, the JCOC for the first time participated in the source code review. This was for the 2019 national local elections. So these are our findings. Next slide, please. First, we noticed that there were administrative columns already, that were included in the EMS tables. What do you mean by administrative columns? These are columns are customary in any enterprise software, meaning for management purposes or for administrative purposes, there's the column for created by, created date, updated by, and updated date. So we're able to now keep track of what are the changes, the updates, as well as when these portions of the software were created. This in the election management system. So this is very helpful. This is very helpful in studying, and looking at how the source codes are produced. Next slide, please. So what we've noticed as a major change in the 2019 is what we call stored procedures. What do you mean by this? Is a major modification from the 2010, 2013, and 2016 elections. In both those three previous automated elections, the stored procedures were in the consolidation and canvassing software integrated. Yes. This time, in 2019, those stored procedures were removed from the CCS and placed in the database. So these programs, when they were removed, when we were provided with the source code review, we were only provided source code review of three major systems, which was the PCM, the consolidation canvassing system, and the election management system. So the database that was handling the stored procedures were not originally included in the source code review. So this removal of the stored procedures actually makes a lot of administrative sense in in the way it makes it easier now for it makes it easier now for sorry for the people who are managing the software to be able to correct any inefficiency or any error in the system, because unlike if it is integrated in the consolidation and canvassing system, which was developed in Java, each time you need to update that or to make any corrections, you need to shut down the entire system before you can do any correction, because you need to recompile it. However, if it's separated and placed in the database, then the system can continue to operate while you make the corrections or the rectifications externally on the database. So it can do the correction without shutting down the whole system. So administratively, that makes sense. Next slide, please. However, there is a caveat, no? Because uh, although from a system management point of view, the modification allows for easier and faster corrections in case there are issues without shutting down the entire system. From a security standpoint, um, this allowing it easy access to the system could potentially be used also to alter or modify the program and the functions of the system while the system in production, no? Or while it is in operation. And since it is already in the database and outside the main CCS, the source code actually has not been reviewed, and therefore we don't know if anything is happening on the database. Now, it is important, therefore, because of this stored procedure already removed from the CCS and placed on an external database, that security best practices should be put in place in order to manage the access roles, the user privileges, and fully document uh, any person or activity that happens with the stored procedures on the database. So there will be better accountability and transparency on that access. So that's a caveat on this item po. Next slide, please. So red boxes on the ballot images. That's what we noticed also for the 2019 national and local elections, is that uh, there appears red boxes on the actual ballot images. So when you scan, um, in theory, because when you scan the ballot images, they are supposed to be uh, immaculate, no? They're supposed to be perfect images, identical images that are stored on the SD cards. This is for audit purposes, so that even if we do not look at the actual ballot paper, we can compare the ballot images of to the results of the um, transmission, and see the comparison. However, this time the software added red boxes on the ballot images to indicate how the VCM read the ballot. This is very convenient actually, so that when we review the ballot images, it's easier for us to identify how the machine attributed the votes, no, based on its recognition and putting on the ballot the red boxes. However, in terms of security and authenticity that puts the ballot image in question, because it becomes apparent that the ballot images are no longer faithful reproductions of the ballot itself, but rather an edited image, because it is able to superimpose or edit the image to include the red boxes. What this actually means is that the software and the VCM allows for editing of the ballot image to include the red boxes, and this could potentially be abused. That if the software can be used to edit the ballot image by adding other items, it could also be used to add or subtract, for instance, shading of the circle, no, on how the ballots were read. So this have to be studied, how we can do better security if we want to use the red boxes on the ballot image. Next slide, please. Okay, QR codes. In the 2019 elections, we introduced QR codes, whereas in the past, we the software only used barcodes. But the QR codes appear on the ballots as well as on the VVPAT. We'd like to recommend that QR codes should also be present on the election returns, so that they can all be easily matched up. Currently, only the two items, no, the ballots as well as the VVPATs, have the QR codes, not the election returns. Next slide, please. Certification Authority and Digital Signature. In 2019, I think Comelec attempted to implement the digital signatures, but it was rather late. But as far as I know, as far as I understand, that this year the digital signatures will be already implemented using the DICT as the certification authority. In the past elections, because of the certification authority was not a third party certification authority, which is actually essential in order to ensure the independence, no, of the identity of the people using the digital signature.
Yes,
In the past,
Ivan,
yes,
if I may just, yung digital signature, the DICT will tell us a little bit about it, kasi it appears that we're at a level now of technical capacity to really use the digital signature at every phase of the counting in Canvas. Is that correct?
yes. According to the last meeting, as reported by Commissioner Casquejo, I believe they have already engaged DICT to do the digital signature. So perhaps we could hear from them later at what stage we are in that. I understand DICT entered a MOA with the DepEd to distribute the digital signatures. So
Yes,
in the
that's
past,
correct. There was some kind of dispute about that because DepEd was urging them to utilize the DepEd system as opposed to embarking on an entirely new registration, which would take forever. So we need to be updated on that as well. Okay, Ivan, is there more stuff?
just a few more slides po.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So we would recommend that the Comelec should have an information security management system, no, and follow IT security standards, such as ISO 27001 or 27002. Um, there, these are standards that are internationally recognized and are considered best practices.
Pero
Uh,
matagal din yan, ha? And it's expensive. Dagdag gastos yan at saka matagal din yan. Kasi
opo,
nag-ISO kami sa Ilocos Norte, matagal rin proseso yan eh.
that's correct, Madam Chair. However, I'd like to ask Comelec, when was the last time that the Comelec actually went through, as an organization, no, went through an IT or information security audit? And what about the AES itself? Has it undergone an IT and information security audit? Because that seems to be often the case that in the past, every time an issue comes out, it involves somehow, no, a security breach, one way or another, whether it's the correction of an ENYE or a 7-hour glitch, or SD card, or CF cards not functioning, and so on. So perhaps it's about time, and especially since national elections is such a very critical event, that it's security, information security, and IT security should really be compliant, no, with the highest standards possible. Next slide, please. So audit protocols, we would suggest that after each electoral exercise, all the logs of everything that's used in the system, the VCMs, CCS, and all the servers, whether it's transparency server, transmission server, and so on, should be subject to audit with or without a protest, so that we would be able to see whether, even without the protest, whether there were any glitches or any breaches or potential vulnerability in the system when it was implemented. This may be done by contracting it to a third party to do the audit, or because it is already post elections, perhaps Comelec can just publish all the logs in its website, or so that the general public can just scrutinize it at their leisure if they want to.
But you're
Uh,
saying this is after 2022. Pagkatapos na ng election to, hindi ngayon.
Apo. After every electoral exercise po, just to be transparent, that the public is satisfied that
Pero
the
iba pa to, kasi you're invoking a security management audit pre-2022, pre-May 9. Ngayon, you're saying na pagkatapos. Iba pa to. Post-audit.
pagkatapos na ito. So pre-election,
Yun yung ISO sana, ideally.
Tama po. Adoption of standards. Ito is post-election, to conduct an audit. Apa. Next slide, please. I think there are only about two more slides. So decryption utility. So we would like to request Comelec that we be provided also to allow the extraction of the SD card using a decryption utility for audit purposes. Currently, without the decryption utility, everything goes to Comelec. Comelec does the decryption, and then the contents is provided us. Next slide, please. Transparency server. So in the transparency server, what has always been happening is that all the people connected to the transparency server are given already plain text format data. We prefer that what is given to us are the encrypted package as transmitted by the VCM directly, and then just provide us with the decryption tool to extract the raw files ourselves. So because the current practice is that the data has already been decrypted, consolidated, processed, then it is given to us in text format. So we'd like to do the processing ourselves, no, when we're connected to transparency server. So ideally, just transmit to us the raw information directly from the VCM, and then give us the decryption tool, so we'd be able to decrypt it and process the data ourselves. In the last elections, what happened was that the transmission actually was sent by the VCM first to the Comelec main server, and then the Comelec server transmitted the data to the transparency server. So it defeats the purpose of the transparency server being a counter check, no, on the results that are received by the Comelec server. Because as far as I understand, in the 2010-2013 elections, the primary intent of the transparency server is to be able to validate the results of the Comelec server. And in order to do so, the transmission should be directed ways. One direct to the Comelec server and one from the VCM direct to the transparent server. So the public looking at the transparent server will be able to validate the results of the Comelec server. But in last elections, it was not so. The data is sent to the Comelec server, and then the Comelec server transmits it now to the transparency server. So obviously, all the results will be completely identical because it has already been passed through the Comelec server. Next slide, please. So while we were doing the source code review, we were, aside from the guided review, we were allowed to do our own review. But the review has source code review is a line by line review of the codes. No, the codes were never compiled and actually run. So although in theory, by looking at the source code line by line, we have a basic idea of how that should function. We would suggest that in this source code review, we'd be allowed to compile and test run the codes itself to see whether it actually functions the way it is supposed to. So, hindi na test run, no? Kumbaga, kung sa kotse, nakita namin lahat ng pyesa, pinakita lahat ng pyesa, at pero hindi ho kinabit-kabit yung lahat ng pyesa at pinatakbo yung sasakyan. So in theory, nakita namin may makina, may windshield wiper, may gulong, and yung gulong dapat umiikot, yung monobela dapat naiikot, yung wiper gumagana. So kita namin lahat ng pyesa po. Pero we recommend that we are allowed to assemble all of them together, compile them, and patakbuhin ho natin at para makita natin kung yung sasakyan ba talagang tatakbo as intended or may issues. So that's what we'd like to request for this type of source code review for this year. Next slide, please. Okay, so etong recommendations po. The first recommendation is for Comelec to provide a full end-to-end presentation sana of the physical preparations and implementation of the 2022 national local elections, meaning from the time that we source the ballot paper, the ballot boxes, how the printing is going to work, how these items are stored, and then how are they deployed, etc. And on the technical side also, that the Comelec provide us also with a full end-to-end presentation of the AES implementation, meaning on the electronic side. The VCMs, how they are prepared, how they are configured, the SD cards, how these are configured, the transmission, what is the transmission diagram to see how the data flows from the time that the ballot is fed to the VCM to the time that it is sent to the to the servers, and whether it has to pass through the queue server and what happens inside the queue server, and then where it is transmitted again. So these are the things that we'd like Comelec sana to provide us, this end to end, so we get the full picture of how the information data flows. That's all. Thank you very much, po.
Thank you very much. Would Commissioner Casquejo, if you're available, Marlon, would you like to add to that on the enhancements that the Comelec has already provided? Perhaps some of the recommendations have already been implemented by Comelec.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies, Madam Chair. I cannot turn on my
Yes,
video
no
right
problem.
now. Yes, I'm immobile, Madam Chair. Okay, with regards to the local source code review, Madam Chair, would like to state that this local source code review is anchored under the automation law, which states that once an AES is selected for implementation, the Commission shall promptly make the source codes of that technology available and open to any interested political parties. But despite that, Madam Chair, we expounded the scope of our local source code review. That is for the sake of transparency and accountability for these 2022 elections. So just a few highlights, Madam Chair. Mabilis lang to, Madam Chair. With regards to the 2019 local source code review, we started at October to March, so that is 6 months. So we are going to apply also that this coming 2022 local source code review. There will be a 6 months, 3 months for the guided review, and another 3 months for the unguided. So a total of 16 groups and organizations represented by 69 reviewers. Now we have already around 18 groups who participated, who intend to participate, and around 70 reviewers. So medyo interesado yung mga IT natin ngayon, Madam Chair, and we are glad, we are happy for that. And out of that, during the 2019, there were 372 code findings and comments from the local source code reviewer. So by enhancing the source, the scope of the local source code review, we address some of the comments and suggestions of the local source code reviewer. So there are code-related comments, there were policy-related, and we have discussions on that. So out of that, we address around, of the 372, we address 234 of that comments. Okay, and for some of the suggestions were not accommodated because hindi na po kakayanin na babaguhin pa yung source code natin in 2019. Okay. For the
Commissioner, if I
20,
may,
yes. Yes,
yung,
Madam Chair.
yung mga issues that were responded to na na-address na ninyo, if I may just quickly, dahil nabanggit pa ulit-ulit ni Attorney Ivan, yung security management ng database at pati na rin ng red boxes for the ballot images, may concerns yata siya sa security risk. While you have easier access, you also have easier access for cheating. Have these been addressed?
I have to look into, Madam Chair. I don't have the exact or the list of all the findings and comments as well as those who were addressed. We will submit that to this body, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Marlon. Si Comelec Director Ladra, parang may idadagdag, tama ba? Parang nakikita ko kasi.
For the new normal, Madam Chair.
Okay, sige pa.
Okay. Yes, to continue.
Yes, sorry, Commissioner.
Yes. For the 2019 local source code practices, so all provider developed source codes are available for review. So lahat po, technically, all of the softwares were subjected to the local source code review. We have a copy of that, all the softwares, and we have also the attendance of those who attended during that time when that topic were discussed. Like the Comelec during the first JCOC hearing, we already submitted those attendance, Madam Chair, kung sino yung umattend during that time when that topic were discussed. And the same thing for this 2022 elections, we will still, all developed source codes will be still under the local source code review. And it is open to political parties, citizens arm, and we include now the Comelec Advisory Council, the Joint Congressional JCOC and IT groups. Kasama na po yan siya. And then for the enhancement for the 2022, Madam Chair, one is the venue now is in hotel, which is part of the deliverables of the provider. And then there will be a clear terms of the NDA and NDU coverage. We have to lax that one because naging issue din ng mga reviewers because they cannot just put there in their blogs. There are bloggers who want to write on what happened in in the local source code review. So we might as well lax that one para medyo may leeway naman yung mga reviewers natin to talk about what they did in the local source code review. And then since it's pandemic, there will be an online session with the engineers of the provider, and then there will be an individual post local source code review certification attesting to the absence of major and critical findings in the source code review. It will be the local source code reviewer themselves who will issue or just state that there is absence of major and critical findings in the source codes. If they cease any critical findings or source code, they can do so. Unlike for the last time, it's part of the NDA that they cannot just say anything about the local source code review. Yes, Madam Chair. Okay. Okay. With regards, may I continue, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. With regards to the review, we now use the final software. Unlike in 2019, we use the base software. Now, since it was already turned over, just recently, September 16, we already have the final software to be reviewed starting October. And then we include also the source code of the program that transfers the received election results at the transparency server to the server party's laptop, to the media laptops. But we will use our own laptops. With regards to the going to the digital signatures, we already have MOA with the DICT. In fact, since 2000, we already have talks with the DICT, being the one mandated to do the PNPKI. So we already, since there is lack of manpower of the DICT to enroll approximately 300,000 public school teachers, then we were designated by the DICT as the registration authority. So the MOA has already been signed. We've been procuring now the digital tokens for the use of the digital signatures. Then we are on the go, Madam Chair. So our election officers, once the crypto token is now being available or available by the ICT, then we will start enrolling all the possible 300,000 electoral boards who are DepEd teachers, Madam Chair. So I think that's all, Madam Chair, for the local source code review.
Madam Chair,
Yes, co-chair, please.
thank you very much. Just a follow-up regarding the local source code review updates. Well, number one, based on the information provided to us, there were so many groups who participated in the review of the local source code. And according to Commissioner Pascuejo, there were 378 comments. My first inquiry would be, can the Comelec give us, kahit nasa bullet points lamang, yung 378 observations? Do I hear an answer?
Yes,
From the
Mr. Chair.
Pasqueo,
you can give that.
hear our co-chair's question. Pwede ba ibigay yung 378 na issues?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will provide you the copy of those 372,
First
Mr.
question,
Chair.
out of that 378, 234 had already been addressed by the Comelec. Is that also correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Pwede mabigyan mo rin kami ng kopya noong 234 which you addressed and which procedure and how did you address their comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We will do that, Mr.
There's
Chair.
a difference, 378 comments, 234 addressed, 144 up to this date had not been addressed by the Comelec. Ito bang 144 mai-address nyo o itong 144 hindi nyo na kayang i-address?
For this coming 2022, Mr. Chair, I'll be looking into those were not accommodated or addressed if those were addressed already in this 2022.
Okay, so
Mr.
you
Chair.
give us all the data about this 144. And finally, a presentation has been made by Attorney Ivan Uy. He has made so many interesting observations, and we would like to know, dito ba sa mga observations ni Attorney Ivan Uy, did you address any of his observation or not yet?
We will look into that, Mr. Chair, as to those specific suggestions of Mr. Ivan Uy, if it were already addressed for this 2022.
And together with your position as to those observations of Attorney Ivan Uy, which you have not yet addressed, together with your possible solutions or disapproval, whatever action to be taken. So,
Yes,
in short, ganong katagal bago nyo ma-submit yung mga nire-request ko so that we shall be ready by the next scheduled hearing.
yes, Mr. Chair, the data is available with the ITD, Mr. Chair.
And can you please give us?
And may we request also, Mr. Chair, those mentioned by Mr. Ivan Uy to give us also a copy so that we can also look into whether it is included in the 372 findings and comments, Mr. Chair.
I think Attorney Ivan Uy is very much willing to oblige.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay?
Attorney Ivan?
Here, it's part of our report actually. Those are just the highlights. The report is a bit more detailed, but those are just the highlights of what we submitted to the JCOC for 2019 po.
O, pakibigay daw kay Commissioner Casquejo para maka-respond sila.
Aha.
That would be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Manong PD. Any other queries
Chair?
from Senator Tolentino, our House contingent? Or do we carry on and listen to the DICT muna on the status of the digital signatures?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair. Especially
Yes, Senator Francis, please.
yes, would like to hear from the ICT, especially the apparent rejection of the DepEd as to the convergence of their systems. I'd like to hear more from that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner, Committee Secretary Dana. Wala yata si Kwan, si Yusek Kaintik. Meron bang representative ng DICT?
DICT po, sino po ang pwede pong mag-represent?
Good morning,
Yes, I
Madam
think
Chair.
there's someone on screen. Please identify yourself. I don't have your name.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm Attorney Omar Sana. I'm the Legislative Liaison Division Chief for the ICT. Madam Chair, may I refer the question to the head of our Digital Certificates Division? Sila po yung nag-i-issue talaga nung digital signatures, si Engineer Ariel Rodriguez po, who's also with us.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Actually, for the issuance of digital signature, as mentioned by Commissioner Marlon Casquejo, we have already entered into MOA with Comelec to be designated as a registration authority of field officers. This will support the application of DepEd personnel to participate as electoral board and board of canvassers for the incoming elections. And also during that period, during our discussion with the initiative, the Department of Education requested the DICT, Philippine National Public Infrastructure, that they are applying for digital signatures for all DepEd personnels, meaning to say this is a DepEd-wide personnel to apply for digital signatures. Actually, they are targeting for the application of 800,000 personnel of DepEd. So what we did is we discussed this matter with the Comelec IT department of for the DepEd IT department to help us to consolidate the application of the 800,000. Actually, also we discussed with them that the importance of the DepEd application, who will be participating in the national and local election for 2022. And then it is agreed upon that the first tranche of the application of DepEd personnel will be the one who has experience in the election during the past elections. So right now, as for the number of submission coming from DepEd, we have received around 27,000, more than 27,000 applications. And then the PNPKI already processed around 23,700. And then given that Department of Education issued a memorandum that they will be they given the deadline of all DepEd personnel to submit their applications to the learning management system on due date on September 24, 2021. So ibig sabihin po, Madam Chair, no? So the bulk of the application, the DICT will be expecting to be submitted to us after September 24. But right now, we have already initial process around 23,700. Kumbaga, para hindi na lang po siya maipon, so unti-unti na pong binibigay po sa amin for processing. Madam Chair.
Pero sabi kasi ng DepEd, hindi matatapos yan until May. So, is there a possibility yung suggestion ni na Yusek Alain Pasqua and the rest of DepEd na you just integrate na lang from their own system? Is there such a thing? Is there an interoperability between your software? Parang yun ang sinasuggest nila dahil yung plantilla nila is so well established, they'll just identify the names and transfer to your database. Is such a thing possible? Because that would
Madam
really
Chair, actually,
hasten the process for sure.
okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it's kasi po ang ano po natin yung digital certificate, may 4 na feature po 'yan. So meron po tayong authenticity, integrity, and then confidentiality and non-repudiation po. So ibig sabihin po, yung mga digital signature po, yung ini-issue po natin are all individual sa mga applicants. And then once it is integrated into our system,
Sorry. Yes. How many have you finished so far? If you're saying that they're indigenous to your system, how many have you finished so far? I mean, at the rate you're going, matatapos ba kayo by May? Kasi yun ang kinatatakutan ng DepEd. Maybe DepEd can reply also. I see that there's a representative, Cedric Enriquez. Baka you can weigh in on this then. Yes, please. Sorry. The ICT, Mr. Ariel Rodriguez, please finish first.
Okay, ma'am. Yung mga na-process po namin as of this date is around 23,772. So ito po, nagiging dependent po ito doon sa magiging submission coming from the Department of
Yung
Education.
23,000 bahagi ng universe of how many?
Actually, ma'am, sa universe of ma'am, it's around 800,000. Pero ma'am, ang talagang
23,000 sa 800.
Ma'am, ang tina-target po ng Comelec is around 300,000 po. So, most likely po
Wala pa kayo sa 10%.
we're doing our best to para ma-issuean po sila. Madam Chair.
Yes, I understand. Pero wala pa kayo sa 10%. Kung 300,000 or 800,000, layo pa ng 23,000. Yung DepEd siguro, nandyan na rin kayo. Maybe we can hear from, I think it's Cedric Enriquez. Is that correct? Are you on board?
Good morning, Your Honor.
I see
This is
Director Abram Abanil. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, Madam Chair. This is Director Ibram Abanil, Director ng ICT Service namin. So we've been in close coordination kina Ariel sa the ICT with regards dito sa PNPKI na na registration. We've already released learning management system where ang namin, yung mga personnel namin will submit the required documents that are needed by the ICT to comply with the PNPKI submission. So currently, 537,000 of public school teachers, deputy employees have already submitted dun sa learning management system namin, no? And out of this, 174,992 are still for validation. There are another 362,572 that have already been validated and that we are gradually submitting to the ICT, no? So that's as of Tuesday this week. So as far as we know, meron ng 25,927 na na-issuehan na ng PNPKI out of these teachers that we have submitted to the ICT.
Yes, Director. Kaya lang parang ang layo naman ng numero ninyo. Nasa hundreds of thousands kayo. Samantalang yung DICT, nasa 23,000 pa lamang ang registered. Ba't hindi kayo nagtutugma?
Ma'am, yung sa amin, ma'am, yung na-validate ng HR personnel namin. So for submission pa ito sa DICT. So itong 362,572, these have been already validated by our HR personnel in compliance with the requirements of DICT. So ongoing yung pag-submit nito, ma'am, sa iba-ibang mga field offices ng DICT.
Ang sinasabi mo, natatagalan sa DICT side. Pero yung DepEd pa na submit na. Parang gano'n. Bakit 23? Bakit ang konti-konti pa lang nung na-submit nang na-approve dyan sa DICT?
Hindi din ako sigurado, ma'am, kung na-submit na to ng mga field offices namin yung 362,000, ma'am. So baka hindi pa na-transmit to the ICT yung 362,000. So
sabi mo, na-submit na
validated ho ng HR personnel namin, ma'am.
Yes, can you please confirm and report to the committee? Kasi hindi pwedeng magkakaturoan tayo tapos mabitin tayo sa Mayo. Mahirap naman yata yun.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Ivan po. Ivan.
Yes, Attorney Ivan, please.
Oh, just a
Or
question.
any of the legislators who would like to query because there's a level of confusion apparently here. Okay. Yes, Attorney Ivan, you're the first. Yeah. And my co-chair, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to ask both the ICT and DepEd, in your coordination, have you done a time and motion study? And based on your time and motion study, at the rate that you're going, what is your scheduled deployment of all the digital signatures? We have a fixed deadline. No, that's not a movable deadline. So we cannot be on a best efforts basis. So we need to have a clear deadline as to when that will be deployed. Thank you po.
Yes, and then co-chair PD Barsaga, please.
Can I ask already the question, Madam Chair?
Yes, please. Kasi mukhang may issue dito
Well, clarification lamang. Ito bang pinag-uusapan nating digital signatures are those signatures which would appear on all the election returns? Comelec.
Yes, Comelec. Anyone would care to answer, please? Commissioner Casquejo or anyone from Comelec, if you could answer. Di ba yung digital signature a-appear yan at every phase? Can someone from Comelec reply, please?
Madam Chair, tell me.
Yes, yes.
My apologies, Madam Chair. It refers to the digital signature.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the digital signature, as required by the law, before transmission of the results coming from the vote counting machine, it must be digitally signed. So in 2010 and just a backgrounder, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, in 2010, 2013, 2016, the one we use for the digital signature is the machine digital signature, which according to the Supreme Court, that is sufficient. But in this coming 2022, for transparency, Mr. Chair, accountability, I really move for the use of this digital signature. I fight for it in the NBank, and soon it was approved by the NBank that we will use the digital signature. So with regards to that,
No,
it's not
first time ba natin gagamitin yung individual digital signature? First time ba yan o nagamit na yan?
Yes, you are correct, Madam Chair. This is the first time, and I really fight for this, for the use of the digital signature for 2022 national and local elections. So, having said that, Madam Chair, that is why we already have the DICT, the capability of the DICT for the PNPKI. So there is no reason for the commission not to use the digital signature. We already have the budget for the purchase of the USB token, although there were twice failed for the bidding, but still we need that USB token, a USB I button this coming March and April during the training. So kakayanin pa even nagkaroon tayo ng failure bidding. And this before the transmission of the election returns from the VCM going to the CCS, it must be digitally signed, individually digitally signed by the electoral board. So kasama po yun. So once they want to verify if there are protests or even interested parties, once they want to verify it comes from the legitimate source, we can always check it with the DICT as to the authenticity of the digital signature who signed the electronically transmitted election returns. So that is the
I think
reason of
Co-Chair
yes.
Barsaga has some follow-up questions, Commissioner, please.
So, in short, yung lahat ng member ng election board, tatlo sila, they would be signing all the election results in approximately, para madali computation natin, 100,000 voting centers. And that will be 300,000 signatures.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And before we can determine those 300,000 signatures, it is necessary na constituted na ang election board sa bawat presinto. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Mr. Chair.
And
That
the
is correct, Mr. Chair.
determination of who shall be sitting in each precinct shall be made by the Comelec.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That is correct.
O dito ba sa ating digital signatures, will you be able to determine kung saan presinto uupo yung nagbigay na kanyang signature? Assuming that the deadline is September, at the end of September this month, based on the ICT.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is why during initial talks with the DICT, considering that it is the Comelec who will appoint the electoral boards, so we even recommended that we will be designated as the registration authority. That is also to answer the lack of manpower of the DICT, because it is the Comelec who knows who will be serving for this coming 2022 national and local elections. However, sometime on I think 2 months ago, the DICT make an agreement with the DepEd that they will apply directly with the DICT. In fact, Madam Chair, to be candid, Madam Chair, some of our election officers already have a list of those electoral boards coming from the DepEd. They were able to submit documents ahead of time because we already give them information that those who serve in 2019 are automatically qualified to serve for the 2022 national and local elections. But because of the change of the policy of the DICT having MOA with the DepEd, that DepEd officials or members will now file with their LMS. So we stop the reception of those documents. Kasi nalilito na rin yung mga teachers kasi sabi nila, dalawa na yung pagsasubmitan natin, the Comelec and also the DepEd. So during our meeting, nag-usap na kami with Comelec, DICT, and DepEd. Sinabi namin, sige, kayo na yung kukuha ng inyong application. So we are waiting now for the list. The problem with that, Mr. Chair, with that agreement with DICT and DepEd, to be honest, Mr. Chair, is the issue of who will serve. Kasi lahat 800,000 employees of the DepEd, hindi naman lahat sila qualified to serve for the electoral board. So we are now awaiting for the move of the DICT in allowing us to be the registration authority so that we can identify only those 300 teachers who can serve, not all 800 that they are uh, applications for digital signatures. Yun po yung naging dilemma namin,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr.
Question
Chair.
lamang. Approximately, there are 300,000 qualified. But we have to consider that this election is different from those elections before. Before, kahit na medyo kukonti ang mga botante, marami ring mga mesra na ayaw mag-report sa presinto for several reasons. Terrorism, safety to their lives, etc. Ito bang sinasabi niyong qualified? Siguradong willing to serve in spite of the fact that there is a pandemic, in spite of the possibility that persons who might be a carrier might be voting on the day of the election. Sigurado ba tayo riyan? In case na hindi pumunta yung designated
Mr. Chair.
chairman, what will be the
Yes, Mr.
policy?
Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, we are aware of the fact na hindi talaga lahat of those 300 who will serve because under the ESRA law, it is already voluntary. So anytime they can just withdraw. So that is why in our policy for our general guidelines, there will be a substitute, a non-DepEd if lacking or there are no more DepEds. So that is why also our dilemma with this late giving us the authority to become a registration authority because private individuals or other government officials must have their own digital signatures. But then, where will they file their digital signatures? They have no access, although they have access, but then again, matagal. So that is why we are urging, we are requesting the ICT to give us the authority to become a registration authority because once we reach in September, October, November, maraming trabaho na yung Comelec field office natin. So the more natatagal yung pagiging registration authority namin, the more na mahihirapan yung Comelec.
Okay.
So we have this, yes, Mr. Chair.
Hindi ba sa salig ng batas together with the pertinent laws, you will be the sole judge or the sole implementing agency regarding the elections? Pag ayaw ba ng DICT na ibigay sa inyo ang registration authority, do you not
Yes,
have
Mr.
the
Chair.
power to motu proprio get the registration authority from the ICT? As a matter of fact, I am entertaining some ideas na baka ang constitutional yung ginagawa nyo, tinatransfer nyo ang inyong authority sa DICT at saka sa DepEd. A power which is needed by the Constitution cannot be transferred to another body. You have to assert your authority. Kung ayaw nang ibigay ng DICT, so hindi namin kasalanan yan, sasabihin ng Comelec.
Well, Mr. Chair, actually, hindi naman ayaw ibigay ng DICT. A slight delay for now, Mr. Chair. Actually, yung MOA already signed by parties, by former Senator Hunasan and our chairman. So it's that we are still waiting for the so-called crypto token coming from the DICT. And with regards to the PNP, yes.
Simple lang, doon ba sa inyong MOA may provision na kailangang ibigay sa inyo ng DICT ang registration authority? O wala? O binigay nyo sa
Yes, Mr.
DICT?
Chair. Meron, Mr. Chair.
Kung meron, you just enforce the provision of the MOA. Because
Yes,
you know
Mr.
the
Chair.
importance of the elections, this is very critical. Yun lamang naman ang point namin. Kasi before, kaya hindi tayo nagganyang digitalize yung machine na lamang on the day of the election. Number one, marami niyang hindi umattend. Yung BEI na naka-assign, wala. Kaya mahihirapan tayo. But now we are addressing that problem in order to make sure that the elections, the proper safeguards are provided for. Kung hindi naman natin magagawa at mukhang hindi nyo matatapos pag mag-alalan, you must have a backup para sigurado lang tayo. That's only my point. Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I think it's
Madam Chair.
Senator Francis, si Nelson Celis, kanina pa si Mang Nelson. Okay.
Just a quick follow-up to the question of my kababayan.
Senator Tol, please.
Ma'am, what can I ask the three agencies, the ICT, Comelec, and DepEd, what will happen if they all miss the deadlines? Kung naman sana mangyari, because I heard something about September 24, and I'm looking at my calendar, September 24 is tomorrow.
Kaya
So,
nga.
tama si Congressman Barsaga. What is the backup? What is the fallback? What is plan B here? Yun lang po, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Celis, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yung registration authority is best given to the ICT or DepEd. Comelec, with due respect with the Commission on Elections, mas maigi ang yung independence. The registration authority should be under the DICT or even in DepEd. Even in 2013, si Yusek Casambre already offered 300,000 digital certificates. So this is just to clear out things that the ICTO before was already ready to implement digital signing to 2013, as early as 2013. And then with regard to the concern of Madam Chair, regarding the ISO 27002, remember that the Commission on Election experienced the Comelec March of 2016. So there were a lot of findings by the National Privacy Commission about the integrity, security of the Commission on Elections. That means in relations to ISO 27002, as mentioned by Attorney Ivan, it is stipulated in one of the memoranda of the National Privacy Commission that the agency or any particular institution should adopt, not certify, should adopt ISO 27002 to secure their infrastructure. So in this regard, 2016, the Commission on Elections should be already secure in terms of provisions of the 10173 or the Data Privacy Act. So we should, I suggest we should check the compliance of the Commission on Elections with reference to the provisions of the law and the circular memorandums of the National Privacy Commissions when it comes to the security of the Commission on Elections, especially for the forthcoming 2022 elections. And I agree with Attorney Ivan in his presentations on behalf of the Center for People Empowerment in Governance and ISWATS, the need for pre-audit. Remember that in 2010, during the national canvassing, the joint canvassing at the Batasan, it was found out that the number of registered voters at the Batasan Pambansa server was 256 million. And then in the PICC, 150 million. So how did it happen? That's why Attorney Ivan, in his presentation, he is correct that there has to be a pre-audit before the elections. This is beside the source code review. And I also read the source code review resolution of the Commission on Elections that it would encompass the VCM, CCS, the EMS, and other systems. The other systems should, if Comelec would still use the transparency server, that has to be also underwent or should undergo source code review, not only the transparency servers, but also the canvassing servers that will be used for the national canvassing systems and other systems that will be used. That's why, as in his presentations, Attorney Ivan mentioned that we have to track down paano tumatakbo itong mga election results from the precincts up to the national canvassing servers. So if there is a data or network management system in place, then that can be tracked. So every bit of the election results could be tracked, and that should be done, during the final testing and sealing. Because what has been tested, or what had been tested in the past 4 elections, was the final testing sealing of the vote counting machines. What about the CCS and the National Canvassing Systems? Dapat yan, yung sinasabi nga kanina, end to end. So the final testing and sealing 1 week before the election should cover that. And then the source code review regarding the compilation, that is a very a good recommendation, because the source code reviews done in the past, nag-walk through ka lang ng ng line by line of the systems, but you didn't know whether it's really working or not. In fact, if it is allowed, pwede naman gumamit ng source code audit tools, that would facilitate everything kasi mahirap talaga ang source code review. Automated source code review tools would also facilitate, and the post-elections audit should also be conducted. That's also stipulated in Section 11. The audit regarding the functionality, the accuracy. Section 11, it has to be done. There's no general instructions about this audit. So that's all for now, Madam Chair. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the panel, both the Senate and the congressmen? I think we have one other item. I suspect it's the Comelec also supposed to discuss the security of transmission channels. Commissioner Casquejo, would you like to weigh in on transmission, or do we proceed with the question and answer? Are there any new developments with the transmission? I know there's a cut down on the number of servers and so on. But what about transmission? May bago po ba?
With regards to transmission, may we request, Madam Chair, the ITD department head will discuss that. Being a technical matter, Madam Chair. Director Jeannie Lororita, Madam Chair.
Okay, yes. All right. Who is our representative from Comelec to explain the transmission channels? Because I think the legislators are anxious to pose questions on the different parts of this system.
Director Jeannie, Madam Chair, Flororita of the ITD.
All right.
The head of the ITD.
Teka, the ICT ba o Comelec?
Comelec po.
Okay, Comelec, Jeannie. Okay, yes, Jeannie, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and
Pakilaksan lang, please. Medyo mahina, boses. Lapitan mo na lang yung mic, please.
good morning, Madam Chair. Hina pa din. Sorry. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Okay, better.
Thank you very much. We received po the 4 items for transmission channels provided by the JCOC to discuss. These are the mutual entity and data origin authentication.
Yes, we don't need all the technical terms. None of us is really an IT expert. We just need to get the safeguards put in place for securing the transmission channels during elections. Can we just stop with that?
Yes, Madam Chair. And the same as in 2010 to 2019, we have the security in place on the 4
So
items.
Pagbabago, despite the changes in database, red boxes, and software upgrades, pareho pa rin ang security? Siguro naman dapat
Um,
ma-improve yan.
We have an improvement, Madam Chair, on the transparency server where we have the glitch for 7 hours in 2019. Sorry, I will just look at my.
But that has to do with the transparency server. We're still at the point of transmitting the results.
Yes, Madam Chair. In the transmission po of the election results, at the VCM, we have the digital signature.
Yes, I think we've been through that. Is there anything else in addition? I recall that there were 5 items. We have an authentication key. We have the audit logs. We have a number of security in place. As I recall, 5 yan eh. And the digital signature is only one of them. Is that correct? Can you just run through those quickly?
On the transmission side, yes, we have the digital signature from the VCM to the CCS and the CCS to another level of CCS, and we have the encryption key.
Yes.
Using the electoral board digital signature, so all results are encrypted before it is transferred or transmitted to the destination, and of course, we have the logs. We have the logs for each level of the election. Like for VCM, we have logs. For the CCS, we have
Earlier
logs.
it was discussed that these logs are already in text format. They've been processed. We're not getting them in raw files in data.
Yes,
Are we able to get them in data this time?
These logs are in a plain text, Madam
Ayun na nga,
Chair.
that's no improvement eh. Doon nagka-problema kami dyan dahil hindi nga masigurado kung yun pa rin ang talagang actual dahil puros process na.
No, Madam Chair, it is in a plain text. Every time the transaction is executed, it is recorded in the log. So you will know what time and what date this certain ballot was scanned in the VCM. That's the audit log. And aside from that, for the transmission, we upgraded the servers for the transparency and central server, and we increased also the transmission bandwidth.
Pero ilan ba talaga yung server? Di ba yan ang naging issue 2016? Kung ilan yung server na yan, di ba? Nagkaroon ng mga issue tungkol sa mga secret server, yung mahiwagang meeting room na walang pinapayagan makapasok, at iba't iba pang issue.
Madam Chair,
how did we address these problems that occurred as late as 2016? Ang tagal na nun.
Madam Chair, we have 4 locations of servers: the central server, the transparency, and the backup of these servers, the 2 backups. Yung with regard po to the Meet Me room, that Meet Me room is located at the data center, and that Meet Me room is for the telco exchange, so that all telcos will have to be in one format. All the results go through that Meet Me room.
Who has access to the Meet Me room? As I recall, not even Comelec. It was only Smartmatic handling that Meet Me room.
There are Comelec representative po at the data center. So, since that Meet Me room is inside the data center, the central server, so there are ITD representative there and Comelec representatives.
Okay, are there any questions? Is that all? Director Flororita, I see my co-chairman has a lot of questions. Lahat kami nalito, sorry. Okay, co-chair PDP.
Madam Chair, just the basic.
Oo.
Kung matapos halimbawa ang botohan ng alas 10 ng gabi, and
Correct.
assuming that all the administrative matters are okay na, the first thing will be the printing of the ballots inside the precinct, which will be given to each of the representative of the political parties. Is that correct? Comelec?
Mr. Chair, maybe
Mr. Chair, it's the printing of the election.
Printing of the
returns.
election results.
Yes po.
Yes. And once the election results have already been printed, then transmission will follow. Sa transmission,
Yes, Mr.
sino ba ang ating internet service provider now?
It is the Smartmatic.
Oh,
Chair.
Smartmatic. Second, transmission, saan pupunta ang resulta ng election returns? Basic, it will go to the city. For the canvassing in the city, municipality. Yes?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes,
O,
Mr.
saan
Chair.
pa? Aside from the city and the municipality.
To the central server and to the transparency server,
Okay.
Mr.
Central server is located in the Comelec.
No, Mr. Chair. It is provided by the Smartmatic, but the location will be approved by the Comelec.
And who will be the persons who shall be permitted to be present once the results are transmitted to the central server?
Since 2010 and 2019, Mr. Chair, it is only the Comelec and the Smartmatic.
So the representatives of the political parties, most especially the representatives or lawyers of the candidates, will not be permitted to oversee the central server.
Since 2010 and 2019, Mr. Chair, no parties were allowed to enter the data
Kung
center.
sakaling mag-request ang
There
mga
were-
political parties,
Yes,
pagbibigyan niyo ba
yes,
o
Mr.
hindi?
Chair. But there were walkthrough to the data centers in 2019.
Okay. So we leave that. What about transparency server? Transparent will be permitted to be there.
All representative of political parties, Mr. Chair, and the citizens' arm.
So
We're permitted-
simultaneous ang transmission ng election results from every voting center to the central server and transparency server.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. What about the Meet Me room na meron din kayong server?
Yes, Meet Me Room is, yes, Mr. Chair, Meet Me Room, as I mentioned, is a telco exchange because we're using the Smart, the Globe, the VSAT, the DSL. So
Okay.
they have to communicate and convert the format
Okay.
in.
Like the central server, nobody will be permitted except the persons coming from Smartmatic and the Comelec.
Yes, Mr. Chair, because since 2010 and 2019.
Wag na yung pasahaba tayo eh. Let's just take of the future, what would happen in 2022. So, nagpadala na tayo sa munisipyo, nagpadala na tayo sa city in case of cities, nagpadala na tayo sa Comelec, sa central server and transparency server. Bukod dito sa apat na to, saan pa ipadadala ang election result sa bawat presinto? Where will they be transmitted aside from this four?
No more, Mr. Chair.
No more. Pagkatapos yung sa munisipyo naman, certificate of canvass ipadadala sa probinsya.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
O aside from the province, saan pa ipadadala ng Municipal Board of Canvassers?
All at the data center.
Data
Central
center
server. Central server.
at the central server. And that will be already consolidated, covering the results in the entire municipality or in the entire municipality.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yun naman sa city, the same procedure.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ipadadala sa probinsya, at the same time, ipadadala sa central server together with transparency server.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And then the results in the province will be transmitted to whom?
The national CCS and the central server.
Na lang tayo para maunawa. Ano yung CCS? Central server.
Consolidation canvassing system, Mr. Chair.
consolidation canvassing system, where is it located?
For senatorial and party list, it was in the CCP. For president and vice president, it was in the Congress. Yes,
In-
Mr. Chair.
Hindi
Congress.
hindi na pupunta to sa transparency server, yung consolidated.
Pupunta pa rin po when transmitted.
Central server, pupunta pa rin.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Pupunta rin to sa Meet Me Room.
Meet Me Room po will be from the VCMs to Meet Me Room. Lahat po dumadaan doon.
Okay, so pero doon sa Meet Me Room, wala kayong kopya ng consolidated results in every city or in every province or in every municipality. Only the results of the 900,000? 97,000 voting centers.
That's in the transparency server, Mr.
Hindi,
Chair.
sa Meet Me Room.
Meet Me Room po, it's not a server, but it is a group of routers that convert the Smart, Visa.
Pero doon sa Meet Me Room, you know also the results in every electoral precinct.
Yes.
Oo, yun nga ang tinatanong ko lamang. So, meron din silang nakukuha rin ng Meet Me Room ang resulta ng bawat presinto, ng bawat bayan, ng bawat lungsod, pati na yung overall standing ng mga kandidato sa Meet Me Room.
Yes, Mr. Chair, because Meet Me Room is located at the central server.
Huh? So, there is only one location for the central server and Meet Me Room?
Yes po.
Okay, I think that would be good insofar as the candidates are concerned. But definitely, they are not permitted to be present in the Meet Me Room as well as in the central server.
In 2019, Mr. Chair, yes.
What about in 2022?
May I ask po Commissioner Casquejo on that?
Ano ba naman tayo? Mag-aalala na tayo sa Nobyembre. Mayo, hindi pa natin alam.
Kaya nga nakaka-nervyos.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Oh,
Yes, who's that? Sorry.
Commissioner Marlon.
I said Commissioner Casquejo. Yeah, we're having
Yes,
real
yes.
trouble here.
Yes, yes.
Parang hindi mabuo yung napakasimpleng procedure na hinahanap ni Co-Chair Barsaga. Yes, Marlon, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify with regards to this Meet Me Room. When we say Meet Me Room, Mr. Chair, it consists only of those hardwares, those routers and everything that will have inter-cost exchange with regards to that. So it's a technical solution as what discussed during the CAC meeting. It's a technical solution in order that all the transmission coming from the VCM will not be lost.
Yes, but
So,
Commissioner,
Yes, yes.
Casquejo, you remember that that's always been the issue. The secret Meet Me Room to which only Smartmatic had access. Even Comelec, who did not contract directly with these telcos, merely observed. They had some kind of access, but in no way could they derive complete logs and reports from the Meet Me Room. Apakasekreto naging misteryoso masyado yung Meet Me Room na yan eh.
Actually, Madam Chair, this Meet Me Room cannot be accessed by the Smartmatic because I have gone to that place.
Okay.
It's not exclusive for the Smartmatic alone.
So
Even
who has access
if
now? Only the telcos? Patay tayo nito.
No, Madam Chair. Even other companies, big companies, have their so-called Meet Me Room there inside that data center. So in that area. So that is why it's very well secured because it's not only for the Comelec or the provider who uses that one. So
Teka,
even
you said that,
banks, yes. So
Commissioner, you said Smartmatic has no access for this telco Meet Me room. Comelec ba has access? Kasi sabi ni Director Flororita kanina may access. Ngayon, pati Smartmatic
access-
wala nang access.
access in the sense that they can just go there and make some adjustment. That's what we are referring, Madam Chair. But as to access as to where it is located and
How do they go there if they don't know where it's located?
Yes, it is located. Actually, it's located somewhere in BCG. I have gone there. There were 3 layers of security before we can enter into that so-called meet me room, and they showed to us that these 2 layers will be used for the elections, and there are other layers used by banks, and there are other layers used by other big companies. So that is why it will be impossible for the let us say watchers to go inside that place. But
You
with
think-
regards now to 2022, Madam Chair,
Commissioner, you made mention of the fact that telcos have their own different Meet Me rooms. Iisa ba yan o maraming Meet Me room?
it's very difficult to explain, Madam Chair. Maybe for this coming 22 to be easier to understand what this meet me room means, we will be inviting Jacob and also other members of the CAC to have a quick look of what is really, how it looks like, what is meet me room. So that is to erase all those haka-haka or sabi-sabi na isa itong parang secret server. So that is a way to address those issues. With regards to this 2022, Madam Chair, under my watch, I will allow this, Madam Chair. I will even fight for this in the NBank if this will be raised the NBank, because this is really important for the public to know. But then again, there are other security risks. We cannot just open it to the public. Maybe to some selected members or to some selected organizations to go there and inspect. Because as Comelec commissioner in charge of the steering committee, I have access. I can go there and then I can give authority to other selected groups that wants to also inspect what is this so-called meet me room, Madam Chair.
Ako,
Madam
Co-Chair Barsaga, please, mukhang hindi tayo kontento sa...
Will the members of this committee, including our IT experts, be permitted to enter in that meet room para makita naman natin?
Yes, we will do that, but in limited, siguro by batch or something because of the
Okay,
pandemic
second
and also
question.
security risk also.
You mentioned that Smartmatic will only make adjustments. What adjustments can Smartmatic make in that meet me room?
I have to correct myself, Mr. Chair. It's not they can just go enter into that meet me room and make some adjustments. It's more on the server, their server, Mr. Chair. It's just more on the technicalities like turning on or whatsoever, but not the system because it's already locked, the system of the server, as well as it is already trusted build. Mr. Chair, I stand to be corrected, Mr. Chair. They really have no access to that. They can just view it.
But Smartmatic has access regarding the results of the elections.
No.
Coming from the president, they do not have
They do not have access on that, Mr. Chair.
with the election returns.
Yes, I can guarantee you that,
Are you
Mr. Chair.
are you sure of that?
Yes, I can guarantee you that, Mr. Chair. I can even show it to you while we will visit that so-called meet me room or server, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
That will be all in the meantime, Madam Chair, for this meet me
Chair.
room.
Yes,
Oh.
I see. Is that Hubert? Hubert yata nauna. Attorney Hubert, please.
Yes, yeah. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Sir Barsaga. Well, this is a welcome, welcome to us that Commissioner Casquel will fight it out, no, to bring select people to transmission router server area in the data center. No, we have fought this opportunity to see the data center since as early as 2013. No, in fact, even Comelec and Smartmatic has denied the existence of the data center. Alam natin lahat yan. Buti na lang at lumabas na itong data center and there were opportunity tayo makita what's inside the data center. No? Just like to make mention of the fact that in 2019, while everyone's looking at the 7-hour glitch, my team and I were looking already at the data center. In fact, we wrote a letter immediately after the elections to request for the audit logs of the data center. Because we want to find out whether there's anyone who had access to the data center, if there's any fix made in the data center server. Up to this point in time, we have not received any response from Comelec on our letter. No? Importante ho natin makita yung audit logs ng data center na yan para lang malaman natin kung sino ang gumawa, sino pumasok, at sino lumabas. Kung titingnan ho natin ang lahat ng schematic diagrams na pinakita sa atin ng Comelec since the 2010 elections nung nagkaroon tayo ng automated election system. Parati nang sinasabi na lahat ng resulta mula sa presinto pupunta sa transparency server, sa central server, sa municipal board of canvassing server. Hindi po nila sinasabi na meron isang transmission router server na pinagdadaanan muna ng election results from all over the Philippines. No? So kung meron tayo 93,000 precincts all over the Philippines in 2019, hindi po totoo na lahat po yan pumunta kagad sa transparency server. Lahat po yan dumaan sa data center na pinag-uusapan natin ngayon. Dahil dyan, para ho sa amin, nawala ang transparency nature ng ating election, which is in our constitution. Kung nawala ang transparency nature ng ating constitution, how can we even trust the results of the elections? But having said that, we are now looking at 2022 elections. We should ensure that we have the right people in place in the data center to observe the proceedings the way we observe the proceedings in the transparency server to ensure that yung transparency na election ay talagang maging transparent. Yan lang po, Madam Chair.
Teka, Attorney Hubert, ang sinasabi ninyo, yung VCM results na 93,000 all over the country, liliko muna sa itong bago na naman na data center bago ma-transmit sa iba't ibang server. So, meron pa siyang dadaanan na data center na hindi nabanggit ng Comelec, Director Flororita, Commissioner Casquejo. Ano na naman yung data server na yan?
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair, yan po yung transmission router server o yung tinatawag na Meet Me Room.
Yan na yung Meet Me Room. Yung data server is the same thing as the Meet Me Room.
Yeah, maraming pangalan ho ang ginamit dyan. Pero the last JCOC meeting natin, ang term ho talaga na ginagamit dyan is transmission router server.
Teka, ang dami na niyang pangalan, may nakakalito. So, may transmission router server, data server, Meet Me Room, kung saan yung orig na data galing sa BCM ipapasok, ganun ba yun? Bago pa dumating sa transparency server. Guguluhin muna bago maging transparent, ganun ba yun?
Yes, sir. Yes, Madam Chair.
Chair, may I respond?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm the one who...
Commissioner Casquejo, I think we should allow Comelec to explain. We are completely confused.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think the statement of Hubert is inaccurate insofar as that they don't know about this Meet Me Room server or the transmission server. In fact, Madam Chair, we have already forwarded to the JCO the minutes of the meeting with the Comelec Advisory Council attended by Yusek Rio and other members of the CAC. We discussed this matter, the so-called transmission router, and they agreed. They even recommend the CAC that we will use that as a technical solution as to the loss of this information because it was clearly explained during that meeting that this serves only as a transmission. It's just a router. It doesn't save any information. We even allowed it. We even raised this with the NBank, and the NBank agreed with this, that provided that there will be no data that will be saved in that. And not only that, Madam Chair, it was subjected to the local source code review. Our document shows that we comply all those requirements before we implement that one. And it was recommended by the CAC. So it's not that we have this secret transmission router. So we don't want that others will mislead the public that the Comelec is not complying with those requirements under the law. So we are very clear. And even in the data logs in the servers, we even give the JCOP, the previous JCOP, and also the CAC of that logs. So if the said Hubert would request for that, they must request it with the CAC or JCOP. They cannot just, anyone cannot just request with the Comelec without being scrutinized first of who are these persons, because we already give these copies, these data logs, all of these logs, central logs, transparency logs in 2019 to all, to JCOP and CAC, and even with the PPCRD being the accredited citizens arm. So I think the statement of the gentleman is inaccurate, Madam Chair. I'd like to correct it. We have all the documents. We can present it again in this JCOP to make sure that we comply all those requirements, Madam Chair.
Okay, somebody's raising his hand. Is
Madam
that...
Chair.
Yes, can you
Madam
identify
Chair.
yourself, please? Sorry.
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Jeffrey IND. I was the one who presented Meet Me Room and the queue management server / marami na po siyang pangalan eh. Secret server, transmission router server, but they're the same banana. In the last JCOP po, I was with the
Yes.
technical working group as a individual and independent IT expert.
Okay.
And for transparency, I was a former Smartmatic executive.
Okay.
Apo. Matagal na po. So, just to clarify po, Madam Chair and Sir Congressman Barsaga, both chairs po, there is a lot of confusion, and with due respect to Commissioner Casquejo, there's a lot of confusion because we keep interchanging terms. Number one, the Meet Me Room. Number two, the queue management server / transmission server / secret server. Magkaiba po yun. Magkaiba po yun, ha? So, dalawa po yung pinag-uusapan, and we keep interchanging them, kaya nalilito rin yung esteemed members of the
Bakit
JCOP.
sabi ng Comelec, isa lang yan? Ba't ngayon naging dalawa naman?
Hindi po. And we can prove that. We can prove that with the logs submitted to the previous JCOP during the 2019 hearings. So yung Meet Me Room, I agree. I agree with all the statement. It's just a router, a cable to make to make Smart meet Globe, to make Globe meet Singtel of Singapore, which is the provider of the VSATs, etc. I agree with that 100%. Is it necessary? Yes. Does all telco have it? Yes. So okay lang po yun. We can call it a hub para magkita-kita lahat ng transmission. So okay lang po yun. That has no issue. The only issue there is that people are not allowed to look at it. Commissioner Casquejo said
to look at it. How come people are not allowed to go in? I think they were invited
in the previous
to have a look at it, even if only in batches.
So now that's a positive development po. So that's a positive development for Comelec to do that. Now with regard to that other server po, that secret server / transmission server / queue management server, let me just raise 2 points to be clear para lang din po and to summarize. Ito yung sinasabi ni Hubert. Number one, admitted na po ito. This was admitted by the last JCOP by Executive Director Tolentino that it exists. Now, whether that server is inside the Meet Me Room or wherever it is, it does exist. Inamin na yan. Number two, pinatunayan din po sa hearing na yon, and I can, again, if you want, I can present it again, that it processes. At the minimum, it decrypts, encrypts. It forwards transmissions. It forwards election results. In fact, in that hearing, we mentioned that there were VCMs that did not transmit. I repeat, did not transmit, but the queue messaging server transmitted. Wherever those results came from, I'm not sure where they came from, but that's a big issue. That is what Hubert is saying. And again, these are facts. This came from the very logs submitted to Jacob by Comelec. That's just to clarify po. Now, if that will still exist in the 2022 election, I would suggest na isama po siya sa source code review. Yun lang naman po yung aking suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Congressman.
Yes.
That's one point.
Co-chair wants to react.
Okay. Let us just assume that there are 100,000 voting centers. After the voting, the results will be transmitted. This 100,000 ER will be transmitted. First, it will be printed. And after the printing, saka natin itatransmit. The premise is correct. Comelec and our resource persons, pagkatapos na botohan, ipiprint muna natin sa loob ng presinto ang ER, bibigyan natin ng kopya yung mga watchers and those persons authorized by law to receive the individual ER in each voting center. Correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. If I were a candidate for president, for example, of course I'm not, yung 100,000 voting center, maglalagay ako ng watcher and at the same time, i-consolidate ko ang hawak nilang printed copy for 100,000 voting centers. Ang question ko, assuming that there was valid transmission, everything would be in order. So we expect na yung resulta na hawak ko, which is based on 100,000 ERs in 100,000 voting centers, will be the same as the result in all the servers being used in the election. Tama ba?
It should be the same, Mr. Chair. You are correct.
Next question. What are the possibilities and what would be the reason na yung hawak kong resulta, ang total ay mag-iiba sa resulta ng server ng mga Comelec?
That is zero possibility, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that is zero possibility. In case na magkaroon ng diferensya, ano ang ating paniniwalaan, Comelec? Patatawag kayo sa sigado. Ano paniniwalaan natin? Yung printed election results o yung lumalabas sa mga server nyo?
According to the law, Mr. Chair, it's the transmitted election returns that will prevail.
Transmitted election returns. Ano nga posibilidad na magkakaiba? No possibility?
Zero possibility, Mr. Chair.
Zero,
I can guarantee you that.
Okay, let's just hope that that will be in order. That will be what would happen in the 2022 elections.
Even in the previous,
all the candidates who want to be public officials.
even in the previous elections, Mr. Chair, I guarantee there is no difference as to the transmitted election returns as well as the printed copy which hawak-hawak ng mga
Isabihin nyo na
watchers.
lang sa inyong position paper kasi kanina nakita ko merong mga question ni Attorney Ivan, yung big letter X na possible na binulugan natin ang isang kandidato tapos bilugan natin the next candidate, that vote for that candidate will be considered spoiled kasi dalawa ang bilog. Okay? So let's find out in the next scheduled hearing. After taking into consideration all the observations of our IT experts who are present.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair? Madam
Yes.
Chair? Madam Chair, if I may, J.R. Contreras from NAMFREL.
Ma'am, naka-mute po.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just recognizing the queue of reactors. Firstly, NAMFREL. I think it's J.R. Contreras to be followed by Jeffrey D. once again. and thereafter, I think it was Mr. Celis kanina. Okay. Sige, mauna ka na, JR.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These recommendations from my experts and our group are the reasons why there were doubts in previous election. Yan pong limang pinadala naming suggestion to improve the transparency of the election would solve a lot of this issue. Isa-isahin ko lang po yung lima na mabilis. Una po, yung problema natin sa transmission. Isa po sa recommendation namin is to send the raw file from the VCM, yung pong EML format or election markup language, diretso po papunta sa CCS or kahit kanino. So, with that, wala na pong need yung transparency server. Wala na po tayong question din pagdating sa pagdidistribute ng data. Kasi kung ano po yung lumabas sa VCM, yun ay matatanggap ng interested party. Yan din po yung recommendation ni Attorney Ivan Uy. Now, yung second recommendation po namin, proper use of digital signature. Kung yung digital signature po ipinirma ng EB ng Electoral Board at hindi ng makina, masisigurado po natin na yung galing sa VCM, mabe-verify natin. Yan po yung pangalawa namin recommendation. Kaya po importante na yung Electoral Board po ang pipirma, hindi yung makina. Wala pong kakayahang pumirma ang makina. Yung tao lang po ang meron. Yan po yung pangalawang recommendation. Pangatlong recommendation po, at tugma rin po sa nire-recommenda ni Attorney Ivan Uy kanina, is yung pong paglagay ng QR code. Paglagay ng QR code sa ER. Pag meron po tayong QR code, meron po tayong human readable sa top portion ng ER ngayon, yung piniprint, meron tayong machine readable, so madali mo matatransmit. So yun po yung malaking bagay doon, yung pong dalawa pa namin recommendation, ito pong pinoproblema natin sa source code review. Yung source code po pag-aari na po ng Pilipinas. Ang isa po nire-recommenda namin para dumali ang source code review, palitan po yung lisensya, gawin pong open source. Yan po yung pang-apat na recommendation namin. Pag open source na po yan, kahit sino pwedeng mag-review, kahit sino po pwedeng mag-comment. And yung last recommendation po namin, ayusin po natin yung balota. Alam na po natin na yung formatting ng balot, nagkaroon ng problema. Naramdaman po natin yan, 2000 election, nagkaroon po ng protesta sa Vice Presidente. 2016, wala pa rin pong nagbago. Ito po recommendation na to, as early as June 3, pinadala na po namin sa Comelec ito. Yeah. For resolution na rin po ito ng Comelec Advisory Council.
Yeah, I think you're preaching to the choir. We've actually recommended a lotto format, isang slash para wala nang mahabang diskusyon doon sa oval at 25% shading, 50% shading. Malalim ang hugot ko dyan, nakakapagod na yan.
Yung pong kasi mga bagay na nire-recommenda rin namin, wala pong additional cost. For example po, maglalagay lang tayo ng QR code. Hindi naman po sa isang QR code. Ang recommendation po namin, 4 na QR code per ER. Yung una, yung metadata, kasama po rin yung, pwede natin isama din yung tinatawag na digital fingerprint po nung pumirma. Yung pong lahat ng detail about the precinct. Yung isa, national. Yung isa, local. Yung isa, party list. So, 4 na QR code per ER. Yung EML po, kung matatanggap po natin, maski magdagdag po sila ng transparency server, mirror server, because of the digital signature, protektado na po tayo.
Has there been any response from the Comelec regarding these 5 recommendations?
Inihintay po nilang dumating yung aming recommendation or the resolution coming from CAC at ihintay po nila magpa-accredit po yung NAMFREL. Pero as early as June 3 po, pinadala namin. Last month, nag-respond po kami with a formal letter din po to the Office of Commissioner Casquejo and IT Director po. Just for the record lang po. Yun lang po, Madam Chair.
Unless Comelec would like to react, I think we go back to Mr. C. Yes, Jeff C, please. Thank you, JR. Yes, Jeff C.
Thanks, ma'am. Madam Chair. D. Thanks po. Sorry na natakatas pala yung kamay ko kanina. Actually, ma'am, nasabi ko na lahat. But I guess just one. one thing po na nakalimutan lang siguro natin makita, ma'am, yung weakest link po sa election, yung voters list. Hanggang
Yung
ngayon po
alin?
kasi yung voters
Alin yung
voters list.
okay.
Kasi yung voters list po natin hanggang ngayon ay manual. Wala po siyang electronic authentication. Manual po yan. Kukuha ka ng balota, ang nagche-check po yung chairman. Tapos sisigaw siya. Diba? Yun ang sisigaw siya. Yung pangalan mo, isisigaw niya. Kung walang objection, boto ka. So I guess that's also one of the weakest link right now in our automated election system. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Is there anyone who'd like to reply? Oh yes, Mr. Salis, please, from AEC.
Yeah, tama naman sinabi ni Jeff din. Kailangan ma-audit din natin yung yung ma-authenticate din natin yung mga voters list. Not only the on a per region or per precinct but the central server. Ang comment lang namin dito sa sa data center or secret server or the tinatawag na meet me room, I heard from Commissioner Casquejo that he'd been there. He had been there. So, ibig sabihin, it's not controlled by the Commission on Elections.
No, I think that's admitted that in fact that's a Smartmatic or telco. I'm a bit puzzled, but certainly not Comelec, as you rightly stated.
Yeah, Madam Chair, since 2010, we've been looking for that secret server or data center. I work with a bank. I work with the Megalink, 10 years in the bank. Yung server namin, nandito lang sa Makati, Anybody could just go there, Especially, hindi naman hindi naman ganun ka critical kung ikaw ay gustong pumasok o pumunta, basta meron ka lang pahintulot. But everybody knows asan yung banknet, asan yung Megalink, asan yung nasaan yung server ng BPI system. Everybody knows about that. Pero this is a national election. Nobody knows about that data center. Buti na lang sinabi ni Commissioner Casquejo, nandun pala sa BGC. And thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner Casquejo, for saying that. Because that should be part of the audit. That should be part of the audit. Pre-audit and post-audit. Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Salis. Maraming salamat. Any reaction from Comelec, please?
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, please, Commissioner Casquejo, please.
Again, Madam Chair, it is inaccurate to say that nobody knows. It was subjected to the International Certification Entity Certification, the ICE, and also with the TEC. The TEC knows about where the location of that. Only that the fact that correct that other political parties and other interested parties don't know where the said and when it comes to auditing, it was certified by the ICE. There were reports, the reports regarding that one coming from the TEC. But the other, yes.
And excuse my ignorance, ano yung ICE? Sino yun?
That is part of the law, the automation law, that it must be certified by an international certification authority who do certification on election related equipments or AES. And
So
we procured
mga
that.
IT expert yan na tagalabas.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Paano yun? Yung nakakaalam mga dayuhan? Yung mga Pilipino, puro sa hindi nakakaalam? Ganun ba yun?
The TEC, Madam Chair, knows about it. The Technical Evaluation Committee, headed by the chairman, the OST as chairman, and the OST and Comelec representative as members of the TEC.
I think the members of the TEC is another contested matter, di ba? Kasi we are requesting, or many parties are requesting that in fact the membership should be broadened. Kasi nga, kayo lang nakakaalam niyan eh. Yung TEC, parang DOST, Comelec. I don't even think the ICT is a member. Is that correct po?
I think the ICT is a member of
The ICT is also a
TEC.
member.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Oh, maliban sa gobyerno, wala nang ibang member? Yung mga NGO, o di kaya yung IT? Opo.
That is why, Madam Chair, I will fight for it that the CAC and JCOC will also be included in that inspection of the data centers.
Okay. Are we perfectly happy with all the explanations we've received? Or are we so confused we can no longer query?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it should not be kept secret. Everybody should know where it is. All the while, we knew all the while na yung data center na yan nandun sa Intramuros.
Oo, ngayon BGC na eh.
Tapos nasa BGC.
Tapos
No.
dati may chismis na nasa QC. Sa Cubao.
It should be open to the public. Eh yung mga bangko nga, open yan eh. How much more? Etong boto ng Pilipino. That's ridiculous, Madam Chair.
If I may respond, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We need also to consider the security risk, Madam Chair, because if all of the public, even those one who wants to just sabotage the elections, they can just put some whatsoever sabotage and all the results will be gone. So that is why I suggest it's only selected. When he say that all knows where the data center of the banks, I am depositor of BDO. I don't know where it is, Madam Chair.
I disagree, Madam Chair. There should be a disaster recovery site. That's a best practice by Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. You cannot just say that if your data center somewhere else bogs down and that's it, that's incorrect. There should be a backup disaster recovery site. If I can remember it right, during the time of Commissioner Bora, no, the Comelec data center there in Intramuros has a backup data center in Muntinlupa. Di ba? Pagka nag-down yung data center mo, you have backup there in Insural Life in Alabang. So you cannot tell us IT practitioners that if that is already down, you don't have any backup systems. That's not a good practice. That's not a good practice.
That we have no backup.
I heard the Director Flororita earlier say that there were 2 backup servers in addition to Central and Transparency server. Do those suffice as backups?
We have contingency, Madam Chair. It's impossible for handling. It is not in our practice handling elections that we only have one.
I see. Yes, Senator Tol, Co-Chair Barsaga, naintindihan naman natin lahat ng bagay tungkol sa Meet Me Room, sa transmission, data, router, server, at kung ano-ano pa, or should we request Comelec to walk us through this at another hearing?
Yes, and together with all the comments pertaining to the local source code review, yung mga observations together with the actions taken by the Comelec.
Yes, we would appreciate the more concise, perhaps, presentation of actual improvements made in response to all these queries, particularly those over 300 that were already given in the past election. Kailangan siguro i-walk through natin kung may improvement ba talaga kasi hindi masyadong maliwanag kung paano mababago to para sa 2022. Isa pa, wala pa rin tayo na-discuss tungkol sa mode of campaign, ano? Abalang-abala yung mga kandidato kung anong klaseng kampanya ang bibigyan ng daan. palibasa lahat dependent on LGU dun sa new normal. Magbi-briefing ba ang new normal ngayon? Comsec, nandito ba yung new normal?
Comelec po yung may new normal manual po, ma'am.
Oy, kaya nga, kasama ba sa agenda natin ngayon? Kasi walang lista
Yes.
rito. Although, ang pagkaalam ko, may presentation tungkol sa new normal manner of campaigning and manner of voting. So, we haven't embarked on those topics yet. It's noontime. Does anyone want to talk about it very briefly? Yes, Congressman Erice and Attorney Hubert. Yes, Egay, please. Ay,
Madam
baka
Chair,
sila ay kumapir na. Yes po.
last Sunday I was going to to the simulation, but I was informed na postpone. On the way na nga ako nasa Roas Boulevard na ako, but gusto ko lang ma'am itanong kung matutuloy pa yung simulation kasi yan yung aking sa new normal, yan yung aking kinakabahan sa election day. So yung simulation ng election na schedule ng Comelec last September 19 hindi natuloy. So kailan matutuloy yun?
Madam Chair, may we request Director Elnas to discuss why it was postponed. Director Elnas, Madam Chair.
Yes, Director Elnas, are you there? I don't see anything on my screen. Can you please put your video on if you're around, Director Elnas, please?
Yes.
Oh, ayun pa
Chair,
pala.
pardon, Chair. Kung ano yung, hindi ko masyadong sir, narinig yung
Hindi, kung matutuloy yung run-through ninyo na na-postpone noong September 19, kailan ang tuloy?
Yes.
Kasi papunta na si Kong Egay, biglang na-postpone.
Yes, Madam Chair, Chairman Barsaga. We really wanted to push through with that simulation of voting natin because it will form part of the general instructions and finally what will be the policy guidance as far as the number of hours ng voting natin, yung procedure natin within the voting center and inside the polling place, and all other safety standards and protocol. While it is true, Madam Chair, na mayroon na tayong template ng Palawan, but nonetheless, we had to go through with that simulation because this is the national and local elections and the number of registered voters is totally different from that of the Palawan plebiscite, Your Honors. So we are in coordination already with the National IATF and hopefully lalabas na yung guidelines ng IATF and we will be scouting for another area that would allow us to conduct the simulation of voting. Baka ang target date natin dito, Madam Chair, Congressman Barsaga, after ng filing ng certificates of candidacy. So
sa ngayon, wala pang naka-schedule, nag-aantay pa kayo?
Pag nakahanap na kami ng area po, ma'am, to conduct the simulation of voting, we will fix kasi all other preparations tapos na, groundworks na lang and info campaign as far as the registered voter is concerned, plus coordination with the local government unit concerned. All other preparations intact na, yun na lang ang kulang natin, Madam Chair.
Yes, Co-Chair PD, please. At saka si Congressman for...
And for the information of everybody,
Yes.
I would like to manifest that the city of Dasmariñas is willing to host the simulation.
Oh, ayan pala eh. May volunteer ka agad eh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. And hopefully, with the offer of the Honorable Congressman Barsaga, the PMO as well as the steering committee under Com Casquejo will approve the same so that we can move on with we can resume our preparation and ultimately we can fix the date for the conduct of the simulation of voting, and we can hit our objectives in the conduct of the simulation of voting, Your Honors.
Madam Chair, just a follow-up question.
Yes, please, Egay.
Director, this is a
Yes, sir.
hypothetical question. Ano? Suppose na yung nag-fail yung 800 voters per precinct, ano yung alternative niyo?
Ano po,
Nag-fail yung during the simulation, nakita nyo na hindi po pwede yung 800 precincts per 800 voters per clustered precincts. Ano yung alternative niyo?
Madam Chair, Your Honors, during the simulation, it's not only one setting ang gagawin natin. Meron tayong gagawin in one clustered precincts, isang classroom lang. Meron tayong another clustered precincts, dalawang rooms ang gagamitin which has a waiting area and the voting area. And mayroon tayong isi-simulate din na 3 classrooms, 2 rooms for voting, and 1 room for waiting room. So sa dalawang voting room natin, isa ang nandun yung BCM. So the other room will just do the voting, tapos lalabas papasok sila sa room na may BCM to insert the ballot. Yun muna
That means that would require more watchers from political parties and candidates.
Tama yan,
If you have one 3 rooms per precinct, then you will have you will have to increase your watchers by 3 times. So how
correct.
can you expect us to comply with the limitation in election spending when you will increase our financial exposure in maintaining three watchers per a certain period of time per clustered precinct? Do you have a computation for that?
Wala pa kaming computation on that, Your Honor, considering na isi-simulate pa namin ito lahat. Then after that, makikita namin yung based sa time and motion namin per clustered precincts, then that will be the time na we can recommend to the unbank para sa general instructions natin kung ilan yung oras.
Director, bakit kayo magsasimulate kung wala pa kayong kwenta? Kung hindi naman legal yun, ba't nyo gagawin? Kung hindi magiging legally feasible to employ more watchers sa mga political parties and candidates, anong magiging option ng mga candidates and political parties? So why would you simulate something na hindi nyo pa napag-aralan kung it will be feasible on all aspects of the elections?
Yes, sir, we can compute kung 3 yung classrooms natin na gagamitin, or the most is 2 because yung isa natin is only a waiting area. So the most, sir, is 2 yung classrooms na gagamitin. If in case, yun ang so magiging times 2 yung watchers na ipi-field ng political parties and candidates.
I think you should do some pencil pushing para pagka nagkaroon tayo ng simulation, at least maliwanag yung magiging new normal nyo, makakasunod doon sa ibang batas din ng eleksyon.
We will do that, sir. We will include that in our operational plan before we will conduct the actual simulation of voting, sir.
Kasi if you will increase the number of rooms and you will increase the voting hours, that would require additional number of watchers. So yan yung and yan din yung kung maraming watchers, marami ring tao sa voting centers. So yan yung mabuti.
Yes, sir. Hindi lang yon ang isa-simulate natin, sir. Isa pang isa-simulate natin is yung distribution of the EDCBL for purposes of verification and identification of voters. Kasi nakikita natin sa previous elections na dito ang nagba-bottleneck dito sa verification and identification. Dahil iisang tao lang ang hahawak ng listahan. So this time, i-spread out natin, mayroon tayong cluster precinct na mag-simulate na i-spread out natin yan to 2 or 3 poll workers na hahawak and mag-identify ng botante and of course, the giving or distribution of ballots. I-simulate din natin yan, sir, so that if okay yan, if mabilis, then we don't have to go through with 2 or 3 classrooms for that matter, sir.
Another question, how can you simulate, for example, a voting center have 8,000 voters, several clustered precincts, but you will only simulate 4 clustered precincts. Pagpasok nila sa voting center, nakapila yan, may mga health protocols kayo. Saan pipila yung mga voters kung outside of the voting centers? Kasi
Yes, sir.
ang logic niyan, hindi niyo papapasukin yung voters hanggat walang health protocols na ginawa, health cards, mga i-accomplish ng mga health cards. Saan sila pipila? Outside of the voting center. Paano yun? Di nakapila sila outside. Doon din magkakaroon ng super spreader outside of the voting center.
Yeah, I think Congressman Erice, the DOH sent a representative to better explain the new normal, and I also think Comelec has other persons here who may be able to lend light regarding these matters. Comsec, nandito pa ba sila? Yung DOH representative kanina, pati na rin yung new normal, yung ating Comelec.
Attorney
Ma'am,
Ladra was here.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may we also invite in the next meeting the representative of the IATF?
Yes, okay, that's a good idea. Oo, siyempre.
Madam Chair,
We invited IATF po, ma'am. And Kong Erice.
Nandito.
Ang pinapadala po nila DOH po.
Yung DOH, siya na rin yung IATF.
Yes po. Kasi po DOH, under DOH rin po yung secretariat ng IATF.
Okay, can we please call on the representative of DOH? Hindi ko maalala yung pangalan, please. Wala akong lista eh. Dana, sino yung DOH representative, please? Respond to Congressman Egay's questions. Hindi na kaya ni Director Elnas eh. Tungkol na sa
We have Mr. Gerard Delimac, Ms. Sheila Tares, Mr. Ebenezer Bonbon.
Okay na, kung sino sasagot. And I recognize also Congressman Fortun, who has been raising his hand to query. So, can we ask DOH to just quickly respond? Ms. Alin sa inyong tatlo.
Madam Chair, I'm Director Nika Haupo from the Disease Prevention and Control Bureau of the Department of Health. So I think yung dito po kasi sa new normal, really our principles are to minimize yung mga high-risk activities po, no? And we define high-risk activities as activities that are done in closed or indoor settings, in crowded settings, and in settings wherein you have close contacts or you don't wear appropriate PPE. So although we don't have specific guidelines po on all election-related activities, as this is something that we are giving assistance din po to Comelec to define. It theoretically lang po, it should meet all of those principles po. So as much as possible, activities are done outdoors, or if indoors, it's in a setting po na there's appropriate distancing and an appropriate percentage of capacity.
That's right. I think we're all familiar with those basic protocols, but I think the Congressman Erice was actually asking, paano yung sistema sa mga presinto? Unang-una, I think the venue will have to be changed. Kasi dati-rati, puro school venues yan, puro classroom. So, lilipatin na ba yan sa mga ginawang vaccination centers, for example, na mga multipurpose na bukas, Director Elnas, and the rest?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Tama yan, Madam Chair. As of now, yung Comelec natin through the Election and Barangay Affairs Department, may instruction na tayo, may directive na to our election officers for the decongestion of our voting centers, catering 2 or 3 or more
Hindi
than
lang
barangays.
decongestion, hindi na pwede yung eskwela. Dati puro eskwela, yung mga eskwela puro
Yes.
sarado.
Yes, Your Honor. So we will be availing
You'll
of
have to
yung
come for
mga
new venues, and I think the LGUs have actually performed that task for you previously, given that they've already set up vaccination centers na ganun din ang requirement sa pagkaalam ko.
Yes, Your Honors. We are looking at yung mga covered courts ng barangay.
Oo,
Covered
yung
courts.
mga multipurpose hall, barangay hall, lahat bukas yun eh.
Yes, Your Honor. Ongoing yung ano natin, paglilipat kung may malipatan, although may mga proseso yan under the Omnibus Election Code, but our election officers as of now, nagsasubmit na sila ng mga areas na pwede nilang ilipat yung ibang mga presinto, ibang barangay to other venue which is more convenient, more spacious, and compliant doon sa IATF safety standards and protocols.
Congressman Erice?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ang challenge kasi, Madam Chair, hindi lang yung health protocols. Baka yung health protocols maging dahilan para ma-disenfranchise yung mga voters at yung ibang mga constitutional right ng mga candidates and electorate na violate because of health protocols. Yan yung challenge na dapat ikinukonsidera during the simulation. Thank you, Madam Chair. But
Yes,
anyway,
that's
we
a
will
serious
be attending the
consideration.
simulation so that we can really find out kung ano talaga yung magiging sitwasyon during election day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, tama. Okay, sige. Congressman Erice, well taken, and I think that should be considered. Congressman Fortun, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. Actually, my question is related to what Congressman Elisa just said about health protocols that might cause the disenfranchisement of certain voters. Gusto ko lang itanong sa Comelec, Madam Chair, if the factor even yung cases halimbawa ng mga first-gen exposure to positive cases, no, na kailangan nilang mag-quarantine. No, pero hindi naman sila necessarily positive cases, but since they have been exposed to certain positive certain patients, no, that have tested positive, hindi sila pwedeng lumabas, no? And this is a good number, Madam Chair. For example, in the city of Bhutan right now, we have about 1,400 active cases right now in the city.
That's right.
At the average of 5, for instance, Madam Chair, 5 na-expose, no, sa household. That's about 6,000 to 7,000 voters, Madam Chair, na hindi pwedeng makaboto, but hindi naman sila positive cases. Kaso, required sila mag-quarantine for the next 14 days. So, does the Comelec have measures, no, to ensure that these voters are able to vote? No? Kasi halimbawa sa mga kulungan, nagdadala naman tayo ng ating VCMs doon at bumoboto yung ating mga inmates, no?
That's right. Actually, Congressman Fortun.
Yes, Madam Chair. May I hear from Comelec?
I don't know if Congresswoman Yoyat is still there. Meron akong nakatenga ngayon na pinaglalaban sa plenary na bill precisely about that, na unang-una, we expand the APP and the emergency polling places to allow for seniors, pregnant, and so on, PWDs. Isa yun, ano? So firstly, meron sila hindi lamang na priority lane, kundi talagang emergency venue. Yun na nga, yung mga safer areas kasi mga marginalized and high-risk sectors ito, yung mga seniors, PWD, pregnant, etc. Kasama ko si Yoyet dyan. So isa yon. This is on the day of the election. The second one is what you're referring to, na familiar na tayo sa mga bilangguan, all the people, persons deprived of liberty but are still qualified to vote. Pinupuntahan yan ng ating Comelec hanggat maaari kapag there are 50 and over voters who are qualified in that space. Pinipilit ng Comelec hanggat kaya, puntahan sila doon sa preso, halimbawa. And I am recommending that itong quarantine, isolation areas, hanggat kaya, puntahan na rin natin pati ospital. Pero hindi natin malaman kung paano gagawin yan, kulang na nga yung tao. Nagre-request rin dyan yung mga refugee camps, yung ating mga bakwit sa Mindanao, kasi yung iba sa kanila, nakaka-3-4 na taon na nandun pa rin sa kampo. So kung 50 and over, may nagre-request rin pati ng IP, yung mga remote upland areas na indigenous people natin, nagre-request rin ng special polling place. So patay ang Comelec nito sa dami ng request, pero tulong-tulong na lang to. And ikatlo, yung sinasabi natin, pag worst case, pag talagang hindi mahanapan ng paraan on the day of the election, hindi talaga kakayanin na ng Comelec puntahan for a special polling place, yung ikatlo, yung sinasuggest namin ni Congresswoman Yoyet, buhayin na lamang yung local absentee bill na siyang ginagamit ng AFP, PNP, media, BEI, and others na let's say 2 weeks or 2 days before the election, bumoto sila. Ang problema nito, hindi pwedeng buksan yung mga e-ballot. Ang gagamitin nila manual ballot, which means hindi sila makakaboto sa lokal. It's not a satisfactory arrangement, but it's better than not voting at all. So yun yung mga suggestion namin. At Yoyat, pumasa na ba sa House yan? Kasi sa amin, bunuan pa eh.
Senator Chair, yung sa early
update natin si Kong Fortune.
Sa early voting, Chair, tapos na kami sa third reading.
Kami hindi pa eh. Pero
For
may
senior-
ganon, for Congressman Lawrence, may suggestion na 3 types.
Sa amin po, Chair, tapos na sa third reading, tapos na kami.
Yes, ayun, hahabulin natin sana. Sana
Madam Chair.
tulungan tayo ni Senator Tolentino rin. Yes,
Madam Chair.
Congressman Fortune.
Minus the legislations, Madam Chair, does Comelec have measures, assuming na hindi natin maipasa, merong bang nakahandang measure ang Comelec, no? Taking advantage of the laws that we have now?
I think ang issue dyan, Comelec has very broad rule-making power, but their real concern is that will they be able to allocate budget for items that are not clearly in the law? That's always been the concern. So I don't know, does someone in Comelec wish to answer, please?
UAB?
Yes, Co-Chair, does anyone want to weigh in? Director Elnas, I saw you jumping up and down. Narinig mo lang yung budget bukas yung hearing nyo.
Tama yun, Madam Chair. One is the law on local absentee voting should be expanded.
That's
and
right.
that would include those who are confined in isolation facilities. Unfortunately, sa local absentee voting natin, they will only be voting for national candidates. Walang local. Pero
So we're recommending that magbubukas kayo ng SEAPP at SPP katulad ng ginagawa ng BJMP and other jail areas.
Maganda din yan, Madam Chair, but ang problema natin is yung budgetary requirements again. Because you will need support staff or another set of electoral boards that will conduct the voting doon mismo sa isolation facilities.
Kaya nga, Director Elnas, inunahan na kita budget na kagad dyan, di ba, Congressman Fortune?
Yes.
Spirit na kagad Yes, so the options are there, but we'll have to pony up the requisite amounts, the logistics, and most of all the personnel. Yun.
So,
So,
Madam Chair, I think Comelec should be ready with their proposal. Apparently, this has not been factored in sa budget na sinabit nila ngayon sa Kongreso. So baka naman pwede nilang isama, pahabol na lang, supplement na proposal para
sagot dyan. Tinapyasan ng DBCC ng 37% ng budget na rin-recommend ng Comelec. Pinapangunahan ko na kayo. Yeah, so they're actually asking, given that a minimum of an additional 30% will be required to comply with the health protocols, bakit binawasan pa yung original ng 37%? Doon ng sticking point, sa totoo lang. It's not for lack of trying. The Comelec has proposed all sorts of solutions, to be fair. It's just that they all cost a great deal more. We are basing the 30-40% additional on what occurred in the Palawan plebiscite. Na kung tutuusin, ang dami-dami ng sinagot ng Palawan government. So, that was the basis.
Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So reto natin yan. Attorney Hubert. You're mute yata. Sorry.
Here now, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if what I'm gonna suggest is germane to what is being discussed right now, no. But I think ang objective really is to reduce the public people in the polling places, maybe on election day, no.
That's right.
If I may suggest, Madam Chair, and this will also help all candidates, no. Why don't we request Comelec to immediately post all digitally signed election returns in their Comelec website, so that everyone will be able to see and make their own computation without going to the polling place and verify and check the election return posted on the bulletin boards. No? In that case, based on my computation, Madam Chair, for every poll watcher, to get an election return, you would need to spend 1,500 pesos per day. That covers already breakfast, merienda, lunch, merienda, and then dinner. And then a load, no? To be able to send out the election return to the principal. So what if we have 100,000 election precincts on election day running, you have 100,000 watchers, then you would have to spend probably at 1,500 pesos per day, 150 million already just for election day expense, no? So if we just get Comelec to post immediately the election digitally signed election return in their website, that would reduce the cost of anybody and reduce the people outside their residences. So that anyone would be able to compute, for example, if they want to see ilan ba nakuha ng presidente, whoever the president positions running for president, they can easily compute in their own respective homes instead of spending 150 million to get each and every election return on all the precincts. Ang importante ditong term is immediate, no? Total naman si Comelec gets a copy of the election return. Maybe there's still time, they can already produce a system in which once they get the election return, they can immediately post the election return in their Comelec website. But read only lang, so that people don't have to go to the street, don't have to go to the polling place and check sino ba ang mga nanalong kandidato.
Okay. Okay, so Yoyet, do we have any questions? My co-chair?
This one,
Yes, co-chair BD.
we are discussing already election day.
Oo nga.
Pero hindi pa natin napag-uusapan yung House Resolution at Senate Resolution requesting the Comelec to extend the registration up to October 31. Sa katunayan, there are bills already, one bill pending in the Senate, one bill pending in the House, urging the Comelec to extend the registration. Ano ba position dito ng Comelec? Matatapos na ang September 30. The laws might be moot and academic.
That's correct. Commissioner Casquejo, may pag-asa ba yan? Kasi ang parating sinasabi sa amin, pinagbotohan na yan sa bank at hindi na pwedeng i-review. May we have an update please from Comelec?
Madam Chair, yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
What we have said, and MAP has already ruled twice not to extend the registration. However, we are also aware with the pending bill, even it was already approved in the second reading, mandating the Comelec to extend the registration until September 31. So if that bill will be passed by as a law, then we will comply. But then again, our appeal, Madam Chair, considering that it is pandemic, our proposal, we even said this to Senator Risa, as to our proposal is to give 1 week extension after the filing of the COC.
Ayun ang problema
yes.
kasi ang layo Marlon, nung 1 week na binibigay ng Comelec sa 1 month na hinihingi ng legislature. Sa dinami-dami
Yes.
na nakapila, ang layo naman ng 1 week sa 1 month, hindi siya compromise.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to explain further, Madam Chair.
Kasi ang problema nito, previously, talaga naman October. Dati talaga naman October yung deadline ninyo. Bakit iniklian pa ngayon pang panahon ng COVID na napakaraming lockdown? Kung bakit ngayon pa na hirap tayo sa pandemic, tsaka pa ninyo iniklian yung registration period?
Well, Madam Chair, with more reason that we have to have an earlier deadline because of the preparations for pandemic. But being said that, Madam Chair, our appeal because majority of our preparations will be affected. As we have explained during the budget briefing with Senator Risa, the December 1 to 15 for the EMS configuration is immovable. So that is our concern, Madam Chair. And considering that many of our people already suffered, even we have casualties because of this pandemic. And then, if you notice, we only have 1 EO and 1 EA in every city or municipality ko, konti lang tao namin.
That's right.
If magkaroon po ng isang nag-positive, nagla-lockdown po kami. But despite that, Madam Chair, our figures show that we have already reached our quota. I will show you that, Madam Chair, I will give you a copy of that, Madam Chair, that we have already reached the 6 million mark of the registration of new registered, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm aware,
Then again, yes.
Commissioner Casquejo, that we will accomplish the 62 million. That was the target provided. However, the question really is that the disenfranchisement is so large because the PSA repeats that statistically 73.3 million Filipinos are qualified to vote. Ang layo ng 73.3 kesa sa 61.1 that we have now in our registration logs, in our registration list. So, where does the disparity lie? Bakit may nawawalang 11-12 million na voters dun sa PSA at yung target setting ng Comelec?
We will look into that, Madam Chair, because those are figures coming from PSA and we also have our own figures, Madam Chair.
Yes, I understand, Commissioner Casquejo. I don't want to argue with you. Kaya lang, I have to defend you also in the plenary as well as in the further debates. Ang problema, 73.3, marami nagsasabi, sinet daw ninyo yung 62 na zero growth rate from 2019 na imposible naman na zero ang dagdag mula ng 3 taon. Ang dai-dai kasing SK, di ba? Na-postpone pa yung mga first-time voter. Paano mangyayari na pareho lang yung target ng 2019 saka 2022? Yung parang binababaan daw yung target para lang ma-meet ka agad. Yun ang issue. Kasi kung titignan mo yung pila, pagkarami-rami talaga ng mga gustong bumoto na hindi makapag-rehistro. So, Co-Chair, I don't know if there are answers to your questions na.
Well, according to them, they are amenable to give one
One
week
week.
after October 15. Baka naman pwedeng dagdagan. After the filing.
Ating kapatid.
Oh, kahit 2 linggo. This is the request of a co-equal body, the Senate and the House.
Yes, I know, Mr. Chair. We will again look into that. But for now, what we have agreed by the actually it was not yet open to the NBank, but what we have agreed is 1 week.
Pero di ba, Commissioner Casquejo, nung bumoto last time yung NBank, wala pa yung lockdown na naman sa NCR.
Yes, Madam Chair. And the second vote is lockdown na po yun sa NCR.
Kaya nga eh. That's why. So you haven't taken that into consideration. Congresswoman Yoyet, I know you've discussed this thoroughly in your committee in the House as well. Any suggestions? Tawaran na ito ng bilasang isda.
Tatawad, Madam Chair, tatawad na sana ako ng 10 days eh. Pero okay na po si Congressman Pido.
Yes, Congresswoman Herrera.
Yes, Madam Chair, follow up ko lang yung amendments to the terms of reference kung nakapag-submit na po ba?
I'm sorry? Hindi ko masyado narinig eh.
Yung hiningi po natin documents last hearing, yung amendments to the terms of reference, yung additional, have they submitted that already to your committee, to you, Madam Chair?
Comsec, do we have any submissions to provide the Congresswoman?
Submissions po for... Usually po, ma'am, lahat po ng submitted po sa amin, copy furnished rin po ang Committee on Suffrage.
So, Madam Chair, wala po ako nakita kasi dun sa documents. Last week, I requested that the additional terms of reference na pinag-usapan during the last hearing will be submitted to the committee.
That's correct. That's correct. I think we were supposed to see the updated TOR, di ba? Na sinabi nila, yung mga question natin nasagot na.
Wala pa pong nasubmit.
Sino ba ang in charge dyan? Commissioner Casquejo, sino ba yung in charge dyan sa TOR ninyo?
It's the ITD, Madam Chair, and the PMD also. The PMD, Madam Chair, PMD.
Pwede lang i-remind kasi nung nakaraan, hiningi na yan ni Congresswoman eh.
Chair, I will remind again, Madam Chair. And I will also look if we have already submitted some documents like the contracts, signed contracts, as well as those requested TOR.
Well, I think I, like the Congresswoman, I'm personally not yet in receipt of any of those documents.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, in addition...
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yes, DS.
Yes. Tanong ko lang po yung in addition, yung tukol dun sa pinapropose na tripartite agreement between Comelec and then the Smartmatic and the telcos, kung ano po ba ang magiging direction po natin doon. So is it something that we can discuss para ma-pursue po natin?
Yes, Commissioner Casquejo, I think the issue was that the telcos only reported to Smartmatic and not even Comelec could avail of these audit logs. Is there a possibility that Comelec be part of the agreement?
Yes, we will look into that, Madam Chair.
Siguro naman, tayo na may-ari ng source code, binili na natin. Baka naman pwedeng mag-report na rin sa atin, pambihira naman.
Please na lang. Yes, Madam Chair, we will look into that.
Okay, sige. Co-Chair Barsaga, kayong magaling magtawad.
Siguro, sa tingin ko, Madam Chair, para ma-accommodate lahat, gawin na lang natin 2 weeks ang request natin sa Comelec.
Oo nga. So, if you can transmit, Commissioner Casquejo, 2 weeks is much better naman than 1 week. Pagbigyan naman ninyo yung mga na-lockdown at apakahirap talaga. Ang pila, talagang May 5 oras, may 6 na oras. Napakahirap naman ng ganon.
Opo, Madam Chair. We will, Madam Chair.
Okay. Sige. So, if there are no other questions, Senator Tolentino, may budget hearing pa tayo in the next 10 minutes. Okay.
So, for lack of material time, Madam Chair, I most respectfully move that we suspend the hearing which we are having this morning.
Thank you very much. And on the part of the Senate, we suspend this hearing of our Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on the Automated Election System to schedule on future date, not too far off from today, to undertake the subjects that have been mentioned and the submissions required by our panelists. So thank you very much to all. And as we always like to say, we may not have answered all the questions, but we've certainly raised the level of our confusion. Thank you, and happy weekend to all.
Okay.